Hello, everybody. Welcome to the show. I have a special guest on today. His name is Dan Hennessey. We met at a conference and it was wonderful. Very interesting, very similar viewpoints. And so, since 2006, him and his wife has been carving in a unique path in wellness industry. Interestingly, this is also when they first started dating, now married and running their company. They are revolutionizing what wellness means and looks like. After all this time, they've found what works best for them, thousands of their clients, to understand their self more deeply and follow what feels good within their mind, body, soul. Wendy and Dana Hennessey are their goal here is to share joy, wisdom, and practice steps for their own experience, career, and continue education to help you individuals create the life you have always dreamed of. Okay, thank you for coming on, Dan.
Thanks for having me. This is fun.
Yes. So can you tell me a little bit about your history for the viewers?
Yeah, sure. The short story is I was always fascinated with the human body, like what we can do physically. And that just took me, since I was a little kid. And that took me all the way up through my athletic career, into college, and into things that have always interested me. I've just always been fascinated by our bodies. And if you go really deep down that rabbit hole of health and wellness, eventually you get to this point where you realize that the physical aspect of us is really only just scratching the surface. It's really only just 1% of the equation or the game. I like to think of it like a video game, and these human bodies are the avatar, the player one kind of a thing. And who we really are is this consciousness or this awareness or this core essence, our soul, or whatever you want to refer to as that. That's who we really are. So I became an athlete, and then I became a personal trainer, and then I became a nutritional coach, and then I became sort of a behavioral psychologist, sort of, because I really wanted to help people. I wanted to see, how does this thing actually work? Because it always came very easy to me. I was always very healthy, always in great shape, but it seemed that a lot of people weren't. So that also fascinated me, because the spectrum goes both ways, right? We have these super athletes, or people that are really sort of physically strong, and then we have people at the other end that are sort of always struggling or having issues or whatever it might be. So I was always just totally fascinated and interested in how all that works. And when you really want to help people, as you probably know, you have to go beyond just what we can see, hear, touch, smell with our five senses. There's more to the game. There's more going on. And it became very apparent to me, and that let me down an even bigger rabbit hole. And that's sort of where I'm at today, where if people want to improve their life in any kind of a way, or they just want to experience more health, more happiness, more abundance, just live life on their terms. It's this inner game, or this non-physical game, that we really want to put our focus on. Because the other way, the sort of the old paradigm of, just working really hard or doing something that's solely focused at the physical level, just doesn't yield that much results. You can certainly do things, and you can certainly make an effect, and obviously the physical is a part of our experience, but like I said, it's only about 1%. So by shifting my focus there, I was able to help way more people, way easier, with a lot less stress and a lot less hard work. And it's actually kind of fun. So the paradigm shifts from change is hard and difficult, and I have to do all these things that require a lot of energy, to, oh, change is actually really fun and exciting. And it's sort of the whole point. Growth, evolution, becoming more of yourself, essentially, is what we're here to do. We're here to awaken to this idea that we're actually much more than just this body, this skin, this person from this place, so to speak. So that's sort of where I'm at in a nutshell.
Nice. Okay, so what are the words you use to describe your pathway that you felt as you narrowed down to what works for you? in your growth and more results?
Can you say that again? What do you mean by that?
Like the words people use in what their main focus is on. Like I have a few different, well, I have actually many that I like try back and forth as they give certain results, but I'm also looking for the thing behind all distractions, the what we're here for, what's the greater lesson, school, growth, ascension, elevation, higher dimensionality, transcendence,
Mhm.
lesson learning. There's a lot of
Right, right.
like
So you're
that.
saying, how do I sort of see that?
Yeah, what you can use multiple. Like what are the things that you focus on in? Okay, I wake up today and I want to grow. What are the words that like encompass the pathway that you're on? And you can use multiple that you're like switching around back and forth.
Well, yeah, um, great question. Well, I'm very much, I realize as I get older that simplicity is really the way. I'm a big fan of things or really intelligent people or really intelligent, creative geniuses that are able to bring these topics and make them super simple that a 5-year-old can get. So that's really where my trajectory has gone. So if I had to whittle it down to one word, it's this idea of joy. And not just joy like, oh, I won $1 million and now I'm joyful, or my favorite team won the championship, now I'm joyful, or these sort of singular experiences or these momentary experiences that most people associate with joy. That's sort of like, again, very first level. I'm talking about joy in terms of a perspective of a whole level of being, where you might just be sitting there totally emotionless, it doesn't look like anything's going on, but you're totally feeling this idea of joy within you. So when you say, like, when you wake up in the morning and the whole idea is about growth, well, I feel like it's inherently built into this game. Like evolution, you can say, is just what happens. It's just built in. It just will happen in some form or another. When we become aware that that's happening, now we can sort of steer it in a certain kind of a way, not necessarily control it, but sort of guide it. Another way you might think about it is I like to think of life as a river flowing, and we're on that river and we're flowing with it regardless of what's happening. We're sort of guaranteed to have this experience, but we can swim upstream, we can swim downstream, we can get on the raft and just hang out. We can sort of swim off to the side and build a campfire. There's all these different things that we can do within this river experience. And we want to explore all of those different avenues of, well, what does it feel like when I struggle and swim upstream? What's that all about? What's it like when I swim downstream and try to go real fast? What is it like when I don't do anything at all and I just chill and relax? And all the million types of paths and choices that you can make. So again, to bring in that video game concept again, everything's already in the video game. Everything's already sort of constructed in a way. And then we get to sort of decide how we want to transverse the landscape. And the thing is, we're always limited by our imagination because we can only imagine what we can imagine. But outside of that, there's all this other stuff that we're not even aware of yet. So even though that river kind of has a 3-dimensionality to it, there's all these other dimensions that are sort of folded in at subtle levels, that we might call an expanded consciousness, or what we might call a higher level of thinking, or a more joyful way of being. It's this idea of your success is already guaranteed in whatever you think success means to you. You can basically either go through it struggling, or you can go through it in a joyful sense. And so just, again, making it very simple, you have this joyful path or this non-joyful path. But you're on the path. The game's already started. You already press play. And it's sort of always going. So you can't really even opt out. Even when you think you're opting out, you're not. You're still just playing a different version of the same game. So to simply put it, joy is like the marker of, am I allowing the fullest expression of this to occur? Or am I doing something that sort of compresses or contracts the experience? And most people are dancing between them. You know, they're having a good experience over here on this subject, on this topic, on this day. And then an hour later, they're having something less than joyful on this topic, in this experience. And because we like to segment and compartmentalize and go, you know, I'm separate from this and that's separate from that. But it's actually all just one game or one stream or one video game coming together. So I don't know if that makes any sense or not, but essentially what I'm saying is our perspective is the whole ride. And these physical bodies give us this three-dimensional experience opportunity to download or integrate these perspectives and elevating our consciousness, which is elevating our well-being, which is elevating our levels of just being more joyful, basically, more accepting, more loving, more unconditional. We're actually stepping into the realm of how a God or God would see this playing out. If you use an example of like your body, every cell in your body is like every human or every life form, but the whole organism that is your body is sort of like the universe or God. And each part of each cell is required to make the whole work. It's all integrated, it's all coming together. And your cell's natural state is to be healthy, it's to be joyful, it's to have this flow of energy coming through it. And only the way that we're seeing things distorts that or changes that or manipulates that. It's kind of like when they do studies on people that have like a broken ankle or some sort of accident. The people that have a positive perspective or see themselves as everything's going to work out, they heal usually 3 to 5 times faster than the person who's sort of in a more negative place or beating themselves up or down on themselves. They're both having a healing experience or a broken bone experience, but two very different sort of pathways or levels, you could say, to that. And you know, you mentioned a little bit about my background in sports and basketball, and life is built in such a way that everything is connected. So even if you just take one subject and you pour everything into it and you just go down that path, you're going to learn or see a lot of those things mirrored in pretty much everything. Because it's really just about you and your journey within yourself. Again, folding back to this idea of joy. Essentially, are you in a space where you're sort of beating yourself up or doing something negative to yourself, or are you in a space of open expansion, allowing the flow, allowing that stream or river to carry you where you're destined to go in a sort of way, regardless of the actions you take. It's really more about the frequency that you're holding and the feeling that you're holding and the perspective that you're holding. And I think as we spend more time on the planet, I think this sort of is just a natural progression that most people get to. You sort of can't get to age 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100 without a general awareness that you sort of have to just let things go and just sort of be easy about life in a way.
Nice. I like the words you use. I agree with a lot of those in my pathway as well. So I'm like, darting, which one should I talk about first? So you started with joy. So like, I love joy. That's one of my favorites. I go into psionics. This is a science of psychic abilities from military usage,
Right.
and of accumulated uses around the planet. Joy is a big one, at least in my perspective. Joy is this, like, again, like a signal and sign that you're in where you should be in a flow and emanation. It's also the good sign of a healthy sacral in the emotional body, especially where you're, and also a big sign of beauty. So like in the emitting of joy, you're emitting an influence not just to yourself, but everyone around you that can be
Right.
perceived by the many senses and be beautiful. So yeah, I also agree with the avatar in a game, incarnational process and of a bigger spectrum of your individualized self, which is ultimately an illusion, but like allowed for individuality as you ascend and grow out of a safe space, which is caused by trauma from the past, which flared up our ego in 3D to survive, and then built as we're letting go of those shields, barriers, and veils that no longer serve us as we rise back up into ourself and our strength and our ability to survive, even in a polarized, dense world. As we learn how to transcend the very layers of suffering and polarized negativity, and learn what it is and what's the opposite, and then grow deeper as we transcend each aspect of those and to where it no longer affects us. We rise up like a hot air balloon into joy, letting go of the weights. Yeah, I agree with that too. Lovely, great conversation we're having on. You talked a lot about 5D or dimensionality consciousness in your presentation.
Right.
I think we can help a lot of people with that understanding. Not many people fully understand it, and I think they confuse perspective consciousness of higher dimensionality of like the ability, like different senses of it that's activated. Like the one most would be describing is the easier one, which humanity is high emotional capacity, more so than many other species, and the ability to feel, and with that feeling and empathy, knowingness, and then with that knowingness perspective, translation, and then the ability to perceive and understand more of the reality than what is seen by the 3D. And then also the perspective ones, which I've heard a few people gone into mostly temporary experiences where they've experienced higher dimensionality. And then you can do that with the other senses as well. And then being so like certain percentages of the equation, because it's like big of what is needed to be integrated. And then what is 4D, what is 50, what is beyond, and a lot of what is 3D and to begin with, and 2D and 1D. What's your perspective on these consciousnesses and the different ways to describe them that you've heard? It's like a level.
Yeah. So yeah, those are great questions, because you could talk about this for hours and hours and hours and still probably not get to the bottom of what it is, which is part of the reason why I like to keep things so simple, or at least start there and then circle back to it often, because simplicity, I feel, is the greatest. Leonardo da Vinci said, I think we had a conversation about this one time on Facebook. Leonardo da Vinci once said, simplicity is the ultimate sophistication. And essentially the idea is, once you become so immersed in the understanding of something, clarity becomes the way in which you perceive it. It's just like we're talking about joy or beauty. I don't need to give you a 10-page essay on what I think is beautiful. I just feel it. It just is, I think a lot of these things are experiential, right? So what is 5D to me is going to be different for you. Just like if I hold up my hand here, I have a perspective on my hand and you have a perspective on my hand, but they're not quite exactly the same. There's a little variation in even things that we consider to be totally in agreement on, like a red apple. You have a slightly different red apple in your mind than I have in my mind. So for simplicity's sake, one way I like to think about fifth dimensionality is this, almost like a math or geometrical kind of a way. So when we think of 3D, we think of length, width, and height, right? Like in measuring a table. You have the height of the table, you have the length of the table, you have the depth of the table. So that's 3 dimensions. The 4th dimension is you. the observer, the one experiencing the dimensionality in time and space. And then to me, the fifth dimension is the realization that you are not the physical, but the soul perspective or the conscious perspective. So that's the fifth layer or dimension, you could say, that once you start accessing that, which is a frequency of higher joy, higher love, higher oneness understanding, then you just start to function in a different way. The reason why your perspective will change, as this is not just a table in front of me in the 3D sense, is because now you're bringing more of that, of what reality really is. You're bringing more reality, you could say, into the picture. It's sort of like a lens only getting a certain amount of light, like an aperture on a camera. At 3D, it's only so big. At 4D, it's a little bit bigger. At 5D, it's a little bit bigger. You're sort of getting more of the picture of what's going on. And as such, just like if you were in a room with not a lot of light in it, you'd only make out certain shapes. What's that in the corner? A piece of furniture? Is that the cat? What's that over there? But then as I turn on more lights, and it's like, oh, okay, no, that was a statue. That's the phone, you know, whatever it may be. So it's like we're opening up our awareness. We're becoming more sensitive, you could say, as you ascend or increase, and that sensitivity becomes more and more subtle. So in the beginning, you get this big jump, right? Like when you first have an awakening experience, like in a meditation or in a psychedelic experience, or, you know, if you go through some type of process, you have this big jump and it's like, whoa. You know, I was just listening to Jim Carrey talk about his awakening experience at an Eckhart Tolle conference. And he was talking about basically just dawned on him one day in a meditation. He's like, who's the one aware of my thoughts? Like, who's the one observing my thoughts? And it sort of pulled him out, zoomed him out of his sort of normal reality. And he had this really expansive experience. And he's like, and since that time, all I've been trying to do is get back there because it just feels so amazing. But it's sort of like when we do anything for the first time, you get this big jump in experience and perspective. And then we're like, how do I do that again? It's like when people take drugs or drink alcohol. It's like the first beer you ever had, like, knocks you on your butt. And then you're drinking 5 to 10 beers, you know, a year later, trying to get back to that first experience of how much the thing made you feel. So we're sort of experience chasers in that kind of a way, not realizing that in the beginning, there's always this burst, like we burst a bubble. And there's a lot of energy that gets released there. But once that happens, we're sort of out here now. And then the next bubble to burst isn't as explosive unless you really make another big jump. But what it seems to me like is they become sort of a little bit more subtle, in a general sense. And that's because if we have too many big increases, it just shocks our nervous system. And it's just too much for us. You know, even if it's something good, you know, like even like with winning the lottery or people experiencing like rapid weight loss, it's sort of like, whoa, I'm this completely new person now with this completely new experience. And it's kind of a lot. Like I need to process this. You know what I mean? So the subtlety or the gradualness of life is for our advantage, so that we can sort of in lockstep try to keep up with the expansion that is always happening. The people that are having a really difficult time in life, I've noticed, is they've expanded so much already. Like you can't unknow stuff. You can't unlearn stuff. You might forget some things here and there, but the big stuff, you can't go backwards. So once you've had an experience or an awakening experience, it's like, oh, I can sort of pretend like that didn't happen. And if I try to pretend like it didn't happen, I'm just going to create more stress in my life. And I'm basically not going to have a lot of fun. But if I allow things to be as they are, now I can sort of catch up with myself, my higher self, my expanded self. And then this process keeps going. And now it's like, again, fun, like a game would be. Like we were playing a card game and we didn't know what the card game was. Initially, You might feel overwhelmed or even stupid or scared or nervous. But then once you get the hang of it, you're like, oh, this is pretty fun actually. And then in that first 2 weeks, you're going to get really good. And then again, your progress over time is going to be slow, slow, slow. But if you really love that thing, in a very short period of time, you'll become a master of it. Because most people, once they get into that subtle increase, they're like, oh, I'm not getting any better anymore. Oh, there's nothing there anymore. Oh, I don't need to continue, sort of exploring this thing. I sort of got it already. And especially in today's world where there's so much information, we can pull out our phones and look up so much stuff about so many different things all at once. We get a couple of headlines, we read a couple of titles, we get somebody's opinion, and we go, oh, I kind of get what that's all about. I know what meditation is. It's like, well, try meditating for 20 years and then see if you have a different perspective on it. Because of course you will. Or, people think they know what it is to be like in a relationship, for example. Okay, well, be in a relationship for 15 years, and then see what it's like. Because as you spend more energy or put more focus into something, the game continuously changes and upgrades. It's mysterious. I'm speaking about it as if I know what's going on, but I really don't. But what I can observe is that it just continues to generate an endless newness, an endless perspective. There's infinite perspective that we can have on just one singular topic, such as the word joy. And we can, again, for the rest of our lives, we can just write books about it, talk about it, speak about it, have, psychedelic experiences about it and so forth. And it will just keep unfolding like a fractal, just keep unfolding. And to me, that's exciting. To me, that's, a lot of people might see that and go, well, where's the end? When do I get to the place where I'm finally finished? A lot of people have this idea in weight loss. Like, I just want to lose the weight. I just want to get to that point where I don't have this 50 pounds on me. Not realizing that it's all about that process. It's all about that journey. It's all about the emotional experience of that losing the weight. And by the way, when you get there, the game doesn't end. Once you lose the 50 pounds, once you become joyful, once you are a meditative person, once you're peaceful, calm, whatever your thing is, now that's just the beginning. Now you can really begin to embody it. And that's an eternal process. This is what I think our souls are doing. They're like, okay, I got to experience what love is in this lifetime, but let me see how that plays out over another 10,000 lifetimes. Let me see how that all, how many different angles I can take a look at that, because it's so interesting. So I think ultimately it's this endless journey. And there's no real point other than what experience are you interested in having? And I think, one of the first courses me and my wife made was called Manifest Your Dreams, because I think the whole point of us being here is that we have a dream inside of us, and it could be multiple things. This idea of something fun to do. It would be really fun if I did this, if I went here, if I made a business, if I got involved in this, if I got involved in that. And our whole point is to sort of let ourselves see what that's all about and go, oh, wow, I always thought, this thing was like X, Y, and Z. But then I actually did it. I actually got in the game. I actually, set up the equipment. I actually pulled out the camera. I actually pulled out the paintbrush. I actually, did the thing. And now I see it totally differently. And it's given me so many more avenues of expression and understanding. That is how I think we interpret it as enriching and fulfilling. And I heard somebody say the greatest issue of our time is that people just stay on the surface of stuff. Like I was saying before, we have so much information. It's so easy to just kind of see what everybody else is saying about it and do all that kind of stuff. But we really find joy and fun and love and all the good stuff, all the stuff that we really are looking for, is when we dive down a little bit deeper and we go, everybody's saying all this and that's great, but I wonder what I would experience in all of that. I wonder what it's like if I go through it. And so that's what really excites me. That's the journey I like to take people on. Is I tell people right from the get-go, like, this is all about you understanding more about you. healing doesn't really exist so much as you becoming more of yourselves, more of yourself, instead of shutting those aspects down and judging them or calling them bad or calling them wrong. That weird thing that makes you light up, that's your essence. That's your spark. That's the thing that's trying to get carried out through this physical representation, this physical extension of the universe that's here to play. You know, just like the cell of your body on your foot is trying to express itself fully as the foot cell, just like your heart cell is trying to express itself fully, just like the flower is trying to express itself fully, and so on and so forth and so on and so forth. And you brought up a good point about being distracted or being sort of, being pulled in all these different directions. I think the only skill we ever have to develop is focus. And every technique, every book, every religion, all the things that are out there that you can learn about, really, if you boil them all down, it's really just about this idea of focus. Can you look over here instead of looking over here? Because over here is what really lights you up. But over here is just sort of great marketing or a scare tactic, you know?
Sure.
Again, you're going to play with all of it. You're going to dance with all of it. Until you realize that the only point is that you focus on yourself having a good time. And then that, like you said, that joy emanates out into your surroundings. And it's not that those things don't necessarily exist, the bad stuff, so to speak. It's just that you have a totally different perspective on it. You have a perspective more so in alignment with how Source would see it or how God would see it. That is like, no, all of this is valid. All of the stuff that you're seeing, witnessing, experiencing, the good, the bad, the light, the dark, it's all actually one thing. You're interpreting it as different things, but it's really all one thing. And our brain doesn't necessarily like that because it likes to chop things down into separate parts. But your heart can feel them. And I think it's about making that journey from the head to the heart. Once we get to that heart space, you sort of knock yourself into that 5D course automatically, just by being in that 5D space. And I think we're sort of more there than we realize. Anytime we're sort of feeling good in general, we're in that 5D space, or we're at least knocking on the door, at least pointing towards that.
Yeah, I agree. I like that. And I like your openness to multiple perspectives, and you seem to have more of a, which I find is hard for a lot of people.
Yeah.
But I have also done enough work to where it's easier for me, where it's like it's like a stable reminder, constant background awareness, we are one. And a lot of people forget that because when the overwhelm and the files on our get put on our desk for what we need to transcend next, which is like the heaviness on the heart or any other negative emotion, which like is there as a teacher to transcend. Of course, it has a story to it, like where did it come from, all that. But even like a negative entity or dark source or whatever, if it wanting to cause harm, it only does if we fully let it, and otherwise it only makes it, what doesn't kill us makes us stronger. And then our shift in perspective and how we translate and how we read it, we can learn to overcome any situation that comes at us, and then rise even greater and come into love, such as like what my perspective on 50 going up and all that. And I'm trying to translate it myself, and without, well, I listen to everyone. I learn from everyone as teachers, but I like to tune into things myself so that because I know certain beliefs can limit or be so, and you can like look for there's so much things that aren't taught to people, and things can hold back, but we can always expand past them as we come towards our true self, like you were saying, which is what I think the mission is, which is the oneness with all the God, the source, which we're fractals of. And like you said, their perspective is much different, as they are everything. And then we are opening up ourselves back up to that out of our safety mechanisms, which would be traumatizing if it came in all at once. If you had visions and journeys in vision questing where I saw like events of the past in which, like, imagine if realities broke down and deeper traumas and destructions than we know that can happen to a reality. And our egos and safety mechanisms of Earth don't want people to die or destroy, or wants to save things from the fire or whatever, when your valuables you got to take from the house. So there's like security, safety mechanisms in place. And then, so the ego is holding on to all these traumas and compartmentalization passed down from DNA lineages and our soul and our history that forced us down into this lower dimension, like a dissension. And that can happen, of course, through negative actions or evil deeds or need for lessons, or just coming to this world free voluntariness to save all the soul family and loved ones that are here in this game that are quite fully making it out through the loops of time.
Right.
Whatever reason a person finds themselves here, as they discover who they are in their individual self before they go into their greater true all self, which the self is an illusion, which there's a lot of cool games and things to discover and layers that build up in a ladder going outward.
Right.
Then they see the layers of how difficult it is to be here as opposed to other places where the layers built on us that we're just born into, as if it's like you're telling a fish what's water.
Right.
And then, so there's all these layers on the heart and the heart wall that we feel that prevents people from feeling joy whenever they want. Joy is something we generate in ourselves, and we can learn the whole science of, and then be filled with joy and get rewarded with joy in the reality, as well as bring more joy and joy creating factors of a life, which tells us about ourselves and what makes this game worthwhile.
Right.
While overcoming each of the things that we're here to transcend and then adapt to and become a master at in such a level that when we go other places, other realms, other worlds, other afterlives, whatever people believe in, that we'll be so much more capable. That, as I've had this like come into my mind too. I'd also love to hear your perspective on other worlds, ETs, higher dimensional beings, going into that too. So that's my other question. And I wanted to go back to 5D, and I'll like go more into what do you think? So the first one's like your experience with other consciousnesses other than humanity. And then we'll go back to 50 with what do you think the symptoms of 50 are? And I have got a list of those too. And I like that as well. And I'm so glad that you're here to help so many people to elevate into your, to transcend what could be years worth of things that they need to overcome and condense it to where it takes less time. I like to do that too. And so that people can bring their flavor of heaven to this equation of earth out of the equation of suffering that it's been for so long, as the big weights have come on us in big events.
Yeah. So I think it's, again, everything's one thing. So all of these topics intertwine. So 5D consciousness, let's call it, allows us to have these extraterrestrial experiences, which are happening in parallel all the time. So like past life, future life, it's just really only now, right? Just layered and intertwined, and we only have certain words to express these things. We can't even imagine how it actually all comes together in one kind of a thing, but we don't really have to. That's the other thing that I also like to explain to people. You don't need to understand how your phone or computer works or how electricity works. You just need to sort of know where the buttons are to use it. Now, if you're fascinated by the inner workings, then have at it. But do so with the understanding that you are one cell in an infinite body trying to understand the totality. It's sort of not designed at this stage to be fully comprehended. And potentially, there might be this idea that there is nothing to understand. In other words, everything is a story, everything is just a perspective, everything is just a belief system, not necessarily reality. And reality might be this just nothingness, this pureness of nothingness, that is this just free energy system that is just constantly, like a Mobius strip flowing around itself constantly. So to get into the extraterrestrial aspect of things, I think we are extraterrestrial. Our DNA is attached to that in some respect. Species from other systems, dimensions, realities.
And to stop you real quick, I think you described the Buddha way, a tenet of aimlessness, which for some people they'd be like, oh, what's the point of not knowing? And I love knowing. It's like a unquenchable thirst for truth. Yeah, I have that too. Don't feel like you have to give that up. But there's you can do both, and there's modes. So mode of ascension, which is aimlessness, which does a rose have to do anything? Like concept. You can just be, and with that is your like imagine the opposite, which is a stressful mind that always has to have goals and orients and meet their goals, and it's very stressful. So it's like you have to keep going on the hamster treadmill.
Right.
Every once in a while, cultivate in one of the types of meditation aimlessness, which what that does is I don't need to do anything. I let go of all of the goals, and they're like little weights on the heart, or not just the goals, because you're not like permanently letting go of them. It's more of like in the moment, you're letting go of any stress, attachment, overwhelm, thing that creates a need and then occupation of the mind, which then when that letting go, purity and peace to such a degree can have been had. So you're not giving up anything. You can still be ambitious, all that stuff to create in this world, but you can cultivate it, and it's amazing. I've tried it. It's like, whoo, so much light on the hut. Woo. So like that's what he's talking about, guys out there.
Right. And I think,
like, oh, that doesn't work. That's new age or what. It's a meditation method. You don't have to give up who you are. Just put a mode in, put your student hat on the rack for a little bit, and then try this out for like an hour or so, especially in the bath. Ooh, that's a good one. Okay, sorry.
Yeah. And then, that's a great point to bring up, because I feel like that's our sort of our natural state. Like if you ever hung out with a kid like 5, 10 years old, like they sort of have this unquenchable thirst for knowledge. They want to know, why is this like this? Why is that like that? Why is this like that? They're not really doing anything with it. It's not really right. They're not trying to build a spaceship, or they're not trying to start a business. It's just this fun game. It's kind of like, what's the point of playing any game? Like, who cares who really wins or loses, But it was fun to have the experience, and you got to learn a little bit more about yourself. And ultimately, that's what you're really curious about. The reason why people like to go on that journey of, what is this all about? What's going on? How does this work? I want to learn more about this, is because what they're really saying is, I really want to know who I am, right? Like what lights me up? What are the things that I'm interested in? What happens when I bump up against this thing? And because that shows us more of ourselves, because everything is just a mirror. So if you see yourself as the universe, well, what are you really looking to get? What are you really looking to understand? Lao Tzu has a great quote that once you understand or know the flow, you don't need anything else.
Yeah, and a lot of the things that one seeks can be reached in a state of consciousness cultivation in which it's already there in existence. There are layers to that in what is already there spiritually and what is physically. Spiritually, of course, it's easier, but I have seen people be able to manifest in that method by letting go of what they are not that,
Yeah.
and, to such a degree, but that needs to be mastered and cultivated, and that is a bunch of different titles for that ability.
Right.
And that goes into attachment with and letting go, which I'd love to go into further with you as well. But you were talking about ETs. Let's go.
Yeah, so I had an ET experience in Costa Rica in 2018, and I was hanging out with my wife and a few other friends, and we were on the beach in Dominical, Costa Rica. I don't know if you're familiar with that area, but it's a beautiful, it's just like pure nature. It's like, that's my idea of like heaven on earth. It's just like awesome. There's a surf community there, but everybody's very relaxed. Everybody's very respectful. It's just like very close to earth. Some of the best sunsets and beaches you'll ever see in your life. And we were just hanging out and we were just having a good time. And we were just, it was one of those nights where you had so many belly laughs, like you're hurting from laughing so much. You know, like sometimes you just, and I hadn't seen this friend in a while, so we were sort of catching up and we were just cracking up all night. Everything was hilarious to us. It was just one of those, we couldn't stop laughing kind of thing. And so our frequency, by the way, when you laugh, you release so much resistance, you release so much stress, you release so much energy. Your vibration raises tremendously when you're really authentically having one of those like trying to catch your breath kind of situations. And so our frequency was just so high, and we're by the ocean, which is another high frequency kind of a place in nature. And, you know, cell phone service doesn't really work and stuff like that. And this orb of light just pops out of nowhere about, you know, maybe 10 feet away, and then just zips by us and kind of comes around us, and then boom, that was it. And we all like stopped in our tracks, and we were like, did we just see what we thought we saw? Like this orb about the size of like a basketball. It was like bluish, but it also was like changing colors at the same time. And it just, we were like I said, like hilariously, like just telling each other jokes and just laughing, to going to dead silent, immediately shifting our like, holy crap. And I think a lot of people, when they have ET experiences, something similar happens. They're either meditating or they're doing something that's raising their vibration really high. And if they're not used to it, when that orb shows up or that ET shows up, they immediately sort of crap their pants, and then their vibration drops down, and then the experience sort of closes. And so that to me relates to 5D, because in that 5D experience, there's no fear. Whereas in our sort of, let's call it 3D or 4D normal experience, everyday life, we still include those vibrations of, oh no, something's going to happen to me in this body and I'm going to die, and that's the end of my existence. And, you know, only this one life, and that's all there is to it. That instinctual survival mechanism. But in that 5D zone, like you said, there's this oneness, there's also this eternality to it, this realization that this body is just one experience that I'm having over multiple experiences. And who I really am is a soul. Who I really am is an energy. And that doesn't die, it just transforms and transfigures into different experiences. But it always exists. It exists forever. It can't be harmed, it can't be damaged. You actually can't be traumatized in reality. And so in that kind of a way, there's no negative experience really, although we can have the experience of those things, although that's just a layer sitting on top of what's actually happening, which is just essentially a neutral experience. But our interpretation is the whole point of the game. Our interpretation is the mechanism by which we feed data back into the whole system that goes, oh, there was an energetic spike here. You know, what was that all about? Why did that happen?
Beautifully said. And it's with all fractal branches of the tree of all, it would be stupid and boring to have one perspective, as
Right.
well inefficient, even if there's misperceptions. The misperceptions usually have a causation, either emotion, interpretation, something they saw, or like literally things messing with them. Either way, there's always something in attachment that's wanting attention that goes something deeper. And then, but not many people are doing it well efficiently, but it still does get resolved over.
Yeah, it's kind of like we're just waking up to these things. So we have to sort of also not beat ourselves up on the way. It's like we just got onto this playing field. where we're realizing all this stuff, even though it's new age, it's actually quite ancient, kind of resurfacing again. But we, in this collective consciousness bandwidth, are just sort of tapping into that. And instead of like rushing to be perfect at it, I think with any new thing, you want to give yourself the grace of being wobbly and not really understanding how to ride the bike so well. And then that's actually how you, it's funny, the fast is slow and slow is fast. Even in the military, they have this saying where slow is smooth and smooth is fast. So when you want to accomplish something quick, you actually want to slow down, and that actually brings you into the present moment, which actually ironically speeds you up. Whereas if you try to do the reverse, if you try to get something done really quick, you tend to be sloppier, and then you have to go back and try to fix things that you weren't paying attention to, and it actually slows you down. Again, I've also trained professional athletes, and this is also true of moving physically. So if you want to get somebody to sprint faster, a lot of people think I have to move my legs really fast to get going really fast. When in actuality, that's actually slow. What you want is bigger, slower moves that produce power, which generate more force and energy, and that propels you against inertia to go faster. So it's the equivalent of doing like a doggy paddle. I'm moving my hands really fast to big Olympic, Michael Phelps style strokes that look slower. If I just show him doing that, it looks slower, but in the reality, he's actually moving very fast through the water. Whereas the doggy paddle looks fast, but it's actually moving slower through the water. And so life is a paradox. The whole entire universe is a paradox. The harder we try, the harder things get. And the more we relax and allow things to flow to us and through us with this sort of air of understanding that it doesn't really matter anyway, right? Like there's nowhere to get to, so to speak, other than just the realization it's actually already here. Now things start to pop up in your experience. You sort of magnetically align with it. And when you come from the heart space versus the thinking brain space, the heart is much more powerful. And we can see this on, if you're familiar with the Heart Math Institute, they do studies on the electrical fields of the heart and the magnetic field of the heart. And it's way more powerful. We think all the actions going on up here in our brain, it's actually going on down here in the heart. They work together. But this is really the magnifier, the magnetizer. This is really where who we are influences the reality through how you're feeling. So when that's shut down, people tend to have a not so great time. And when they learn how to open up, even if they don't know anything, even if they can't even read a book, they're illiterate, but they understand how to just generally be more open to the flow sort of carrying them, trust, faith, these kinds of things. Now all of a sudden things start to work out. And they weren't following all the rules that everybody who's intelligent has access to. They did it their own way. They did it, just through this idea of joy or bliss or following the fun, following the feel good. And now all of a sudden that has carried them to the place that they're actually wanting to be. And things just fall into place. The right people show up, the right help shows up, the money shows up, the right diet shows up, the right exercise program, whatever it is, whatever they think is really stumping them, all of a sudden it's like, oh, that problem I was having for 10 years is just not really a thing anymore. I just feel better, and somehow it just went away. It seems to me that everything's already there. All the solutions are already there in place. We just have to line up with them. And it happens through this letting go process that you alluded to nature with the rose. Nature's our greatest teacher, I feel like, because what do the leaves do every season around fall is they fall away. The trees don't try to hold on to these things, they let them go. And that strengthens them for the next cycle to come around, for the next phase, the next wave, the next appropriate time for growth to happen. And that's sort of a longer scale, but it happens also on a mini scale every single day, every single moment. We're sort of in-breathing and out-breathing. We don't try to hold on to our breath, right? We let it go. We realize that has to flow freely out from us. And actually, when we let go more, So I do breath work with people too. I get them to practice exhaling more. And just by working on the exhale, you naturally go inhale more. So everything's this paradoxical relationship, this inverse relationship where when we try to do one thing, we can actually sort of limit ourselves. And when we get into a state of relaxation, that's when everything just seems to work a lot better. Whether it be a physical sport, whether it be a business, whether it be a relationship, whether it be ascending to higher consciousness levels. And I think the ETs or any other higher level understanding society or species gets this too. So they'll breadcrumb situations out, but they're not just going to show up full force, because that would be so shocking to our system, because it's not relaxing. It's too helter-skelter. It'd be disadvantageous to us, where just sort of allowing these little mini stories to proliferate through our societal, let it show up in a movie here, let somebody report about it on the news, let somebody talk about it on their YouTube channel, and let that play out for 100 or 1,000 or however many years, so that people familiarize themselves with it. And then the occurrences will start to change. And then, 100 years from now, it'll just be commonplace where people are like, oh yeah, I connect with this ET, I know this ET, I go to this planet, this happens and this happens. It just happens in these, we have these timelines in our head, but the universe has its own timeline. And I think the fast track is through love and relaxation, ironically, because we're all taught the other thing, work really hard. But in the three-dimensional landscape, that makes total sense. In the three-dimensional landscape, yeah, learn how to pick up heavier stuff means you can do more work over the same period of time as somebody else. But that's only assuming that there's physicality, and it's leaving out the big player, which is our consciousness, or the universal consciousness, the field that is actually emanating the physical. We're just seeing the end of a very long set of dominoes, and we're trying to change that last domino. We're going, why? Man, this is really hard. I'm changing this last domino, but I'm still getting the same results, or I'm still having the same issues. Well, there's all these other dominoes that aren't necessarily easily picked up by our five senses. But if you go through a process of tapping into those subtle dominoes within, then those become more apparent, and then the perspective shifts. And then you're like, oh, this is so much more expansive than I ever thought possible. Maybe I don't really need to hold on to any one thought so strongly. I can explore it till I'm blue in the face, and that's great, have fun. But maybe I don't need to have such a strong stance about anything. I can be more fluid with it, like a dancer. They're doing moves, right? But it's really one move. I'm lifting my shoulder, I'm moving my elbow, I'm moving my hand, and I can look at those three separate movements, or I can just use it as one movement. It's like a martial art almost. So there's this fluidity. Everything's like a wave. And then we go freeze frame. What's that one particular thing? Freeze frame. What's that one particular thing? Whereas if we just sort of relax and allow that flow to take care of everything, we sort of get what we need at the right moment, at the right time, through this communication system from our higher self, our soul self, the universe at large. That's just going, here's a feeling, here's an impulse, here's an idea, here's what makes sense in the moment. And then you just go that way, and now you're dancing with the universe, as opposed to trying to be like, what are you doing over here, universe? Now you're in the universe, you're in the flow. And that somehow, in some way, takes care of everything. And that might be an oversimplistic thing, but I would challenge or offer people, try for like an hour of your day to not do anything. Don't try to accomplish a goal. Don't try to be anybody. Don't try to put on a mask in any kind of a way, or attempt to accomplish something in any kind of a way. And just see what happens. Just see where your mind goes, see where your inspiration goes, see what sort of bubbles up through your system. Because when I put people through these kinds of processes, because it's sort of like a clearing exercise, you could say. We push so much stuff down and we're so when we just allow ourselves to sort of bubble open, we might get an emotional response. We might start to bawl crying. We might start to laugh. You might start to go, you know what? I just want to take a nap. You might want to go for a walk. All these million things could come up. And what's interesting is that process is sort of the flowering, the petals unfolding. The thing that we've been trying to get to is trying to happen. And another way you could look at it is it's actually already happened. But our experience of it or our perception of it is taking us through a chronological process so that we can have this unfolding experience of, oh, look, now I'm an adult, right? I was once a child. But really, all of these layers of you exist all the time. And that's so expansive, we can't wrap our head around it. But as we allow ourselves to go through a process of just going, okay, right where I'm at is perfect. And in the next moment, I'm going to unfold in a perfect kind of a way. I don't know how, I don't know why exactly, but I have this underlying faith or trust, or this just resonates at some level where it's surely not me making this all happen. It's surely not the president or some, system out there making it happen. It's surely not, you know what I mean? There's more intelligence in one cell of our body than in all of the computers on our planet combined. No, we haven't been able to take a banana, for example, put it into a system and create a human body. But my human body can. All my trillions of cells can do that, and they do it effortlessly. And it's just perpetual. We've been sort of conditioned to think that it breaks down or that we need to increase our metabolism or something like that. But it's really not that way. It's just one interpretation of it. And once you see that the dance sort of flows through you, then you become a better dancer just by the fact that you're not resisting the energy. In other words, everybody that's great at what they do gets to a certain point where they realize they're not doing it anymore. We call that being in the zone. That's a state of non-thinking. It's a state of higher awareness. It's more of a 5D consciousness. It actually goes into higher levels too, but it's that awareness of the plant is growing itself, not the farmer. We think we're the farmer doing all of the growth. But the growing is happening to you, for you, through you, as you. And that is a multi-dimensional perspective that if you meditate on, so here's another example. So I've had a near-death experience through using DMT, which is very similar to people that have had like car accidents and have died and come back. You go into a similar space where your perspective becomes this 360 perspective, which doesn't really make any sense until you experience it. Right now I can see this, I have my peripheral vision, but when you leave your body, you have this 360 spherical view of everything. Everything just becomes visually aware to you. But your eyes can't do that in the physical, but you're not seeing through your eyes. And you can do that while you're in your body too. You can have this awareness of something's behind me, where I just feel like a lot of times people that are connected very deeply, like a mother and child, spouses, I will feel my wife almost home. She went out to the store. I can sort of feel that she's around the corner. I don't know how that's really happening, but it happens. Or another example that I think a lot of people have had is, if I just have a piece of trash in my hand, I'm trying to throw it into the garbage can that's across the room, and I'm not thinking about it, I'm just like, boom. And then I look over and I realize I made this sort of like impossible shot. That just sort of happened because I was in the flow of not thinking about it. If I try to do that, I'm going to miss 100 out of 100 attempts. But at the time I wasn't thinking about it, not even trying, it went in on the first attempt. That's sort of how life is. It's like we've all had that experience where something just happened. And we're like, if I tried to do that a million times, I would not get that result. But we all have these experiences where we all feel something happening. And we're like, And you know what? I would normally go this way, but something's telling me to go that way. And then it puts us through, including, by the way, negative experiences. We might have thought that the trauma experience or the time you messed up really bad or the time you lost $1,000 on a stupid thing, you know, whatever happened, you might think that, oh man, I really messed up there. When in fact, we're guiding ourselves into these experiences for the awakening aspect of it. And the perspective of joy is, I'm grateful for that part too. I'm recognizing that there is no good or bad. I'm actually seeing the Holy Trinity here, the divine Trinity, which is positive, negative, and then where they meet in the middle to create the union of neutrality. And that's where we so-called ascend, because the good and the bad, the day and the night are really all just part of the same thing, which is this sort of divine expression that without that perspective, we don't have experience. And so it's all about having the experience. You're calling it transcendence. I'm calling it awareness. I'm calling it the natural evolution. And as we shift into the joy perspective, we go, oh, okay, this is actually all here for me. I get to play this game however I want to do it. And when I tap into my heart space, I have all these dreams. And as I allow myself to follow that inspiration, then all of a sudden, I'm also getting those wanted experiences. I'm finally getting the job that I want. I'm getting paid what I want, or meeting people that are in alignment with me, or I learn about something cool, or I see, you know, just more positive things happen in my life. And it's, to me, that's really fun. Because if you've ever been in a depressed state or a less than happy state, you notice you get really in your head about it. You try to think your way out of everything, which sort of implodes back on itself, because thinking is sort of the hard way, whereas feeling is the easy way. And just that knowingness, I feel, is huge. I feel like that helps people jump light years ahead. They just get into the feeling space and go, okay, I don't really know what's going on here, but I know that I need to rest right now. Even though I got these projects, even though the papers are on the desk and I got to do all this stuff, I'll get to that when I'm feeling a little bit better. And that is trust. That is knowing yourself. And that's where you'll find ease and flow. Enjoy.
Yeah, well said. Getting into the flow and letting go and seeing what is within. As I find, if people wanted to go towards the concept of 5D or whatever, which is you know, just a newer word for a leveling process of becoming truer, and I like sometimes if they just take it for the first bits, they can, you know, misperceive it. And there's a lot of perspectives on it. At least in my experience, it's not like going up, it's going within.
Right.
So this is just my perspective, but so you can take it with a grain of salt.
I think it's actually both, right? It's like a plant. They grow roots down and branches and leaves and flowers upward. It's happening simultaneously. And I think it's actually happening in every direction all at once. I think of it like a bubble or a balloon.
Yeah. Within and then without, you can like even analyze though. What are those directions, and depending on like what you find in the examples of others that have grown in those areas, you can like label that as like either winning or failing at it. Though there's like because I've analyzed it, at least there's like a up higher dimension of ascending and then descending, and then like what is going, you know, in all the directionals, what's going forward, what's going back, what are these mean? They are a spiritual function that people can explore. So at least with what I've been getting taken into, which is the going within path and falling deep within you in like a trust fall of faith and letting go of everything externally and everything that's external that is not serving you, or a limitation in the perspective of what is not, or what is limiting the perspective of integrating more towards God, which is in the within direction in higher consciousness, as like if all time and space collapsed into a singularity and it emanated from a singular point. And then the attachment and letting go is the pathway to enlightenment in Buddhism and Hinduism. So yeah, it served me quite a bit, like in listening out like crazy, gaining high amounts of knowingness, having intense visions, expansion of awareness and consciousness, and then building upon it in resilience and love, unconditional love. A lot of the symptoms that I've experienced, my growth in it, unconditional love, transcending evil, understanding more of causation, going to the core of issues instead of like the outer, which is like, I kind of like, I'm making my own system, but like as I categorize when people find the causation for a thing, like, oh, I got hit by a car, let me blame that other person. And then like in the higher consciousness, that's like more of a 3D to 4D kind of thing, going to like 4D being like, oh, there's external causes. And I could even go deep into that, like, oh, that guy was influenced by that demon, and that was influenced by a karmic need for something. Going apart higher is going more within. So then it going into the within direction of like why that happened, what allowed that, what can I learn from it, where's the lessons, and what is needing to integrate coming forward that allows for a goal, which like you can like look at goals. I it's hard to get away from goals, and I think the Buddha even went into this, like when you have a direction, like to be aimless, or even to have purposelessness, or be silent of mind or nothingness, that's still a goal. And it's like, how do we get rid of that? Oh, so it's like a little, and there's like layers to the level. So I at least think there are more to the true points beyond all distraction goals that are like a infinite internal righteous thing for anything you point to, and then there's external attachment goals that are more distractionary. But yeah, either way, it's like whatever path people choose, there's a growth pace that our people are comfortable. And then like each layer, as you like go in, and I wanted to ask you that after this question, how long do you meditate a day? As you go within and you you come to silence of mind, you come to emptiness of the cup, you come to this peace, this lightness, the weighted coats coming off. You can, when people start doing this, it's like a slow pace, and they like thought comes. That shows you what you're attached to. That's something to resolve. What does it need? And the detachment layers, and you get better and faster at doing each one as you meditate. And then it gets lighter and lighter, and then you there will be more complicated things that come up as you get rid of the easy ones that take some awareness and knowingness of why they're there, and where they came from, and such as the crying and the emotional releases, and the things that need your integration taking time, soul shard integration, wounds, whatever. The transcendence of negative emotions like fear and pain, suffering, loss, sadness, guilt, anxiety, stress, learning what those mean, because science barely knows anything. They just like, oh, it's hormones and it's generated by that. Yes, you can clear your organs and make them pure, and they generate positive emotions once you learn how to transmute the negative to positive. But that's also going deeper. It's taking you to something that needs attention, and it wants you to know about it. And as you gain awareness, and it no longer needs to be there, and even if they keep coming back, because sometimes we're like, oh yeah, I finally got over that, I transcended that, and then it comes back later. There's deeper layers and kind of aspects that need to be known about it into mastery, which is then like, okay, why is this a school? Are there goals? Who is holding the goals? Who's the teachers? Who's my higher self, and what do they want? What does
Right.
Earth want? What does Source want? Where's this river going?
Right.
So like I see that as the infinite, beautiful unity of all goals. And you can use a different word if you want. But yeah, and we don't need to hold it to get there because it's already held. So we
Right.
let go of the superficial, stressful, finite goals as we go into emptiness and allow ourselves to be empty so that we can fill ourselves with more consciousness and then expand ourselves. And then it allows for, because a lot of that bigger consciousness wants to have itself more present here in 3D. At least that's what I find. So integration, grounding, being, becoming. What are we becoming? But our true self. What is our true self? Non-limited to words, which is everything. And then it's like, how do you fit everything in a small cup? Well, that cup is designed well by those higher consciousness to feel infinite, but still is a mastering process to allow more in. And then what happens when you're integrated, and why would they want to integrate? It was like change and the transition and the becoming and the orientation of things not being permanent, non-permanence. And where is the non-permanence and the change going? And there's like an orience and pattern that is to that spells out the desires or the infinite goal desire, whatever, that's limitation and non-polarization of the oneness consciousness, and which is like life, expansion, growth, goodness, wholeness, learning. Yeah, there's a lot of words. But it's like, I've also, not to be egoic or anything, but let's say hypothetically, imagine if you found yourself incarnating on a world that was so very powerful, divinely inspiring school that was to take beings that incarnated onto it to the next level. That's a jewel of the universe that has so much weird, crazy melting pot of all existence coming down here to have a remedy for the antidote for all evil, the end of all war, the coming to peace of every consciousness involved, to unify the entireness of existence and resolve bigger and bigger problems that have been going along for a while. To resolve all karma, bring everyone to peace, as well as the beings involved, since there's so many, and it's not exactly an easy task. So not everyone needs to come, but at least the most powerful and interesting and bravest representations of each place will likely be the ones be coming down there. So that means beings that have been existing in soul way longer than this place came into existence, coming here a lot of the time, and going through their own schools wherever they came from to such a high degree that they feel confident enough to come to this high level game. So that means the best of the best, the greatest, the most light, good, dark, evil players of various places, gods amongst their own worlds, coming here, and then coming here and not remembering any of it, and then remembering who they are.
Yeah, I think it's all, that was beautifully said. I think the universe is based on humor. I think it's based on a joke. I think it's one giant comic experience. And what's that?
That's well said.
Well,
Yeah, what anyway to you? Like, to me, like, what causes it? Surprise, things you're not expecting, a energy, like a comedic source energy that comes from an original divine joke of the universe that just branches out into everything, reflecting itself as it comes into awareness.
Right. Because the basis of all comedy is you thought things were going this way, and then you make a left turn.
Yeah.
And so the audience
The
hearing
truth. Yeah.
the audience hearing the joke goes, oh, I was expecting you to go this way because we're all being set up. And then the comedian or whoever's telling the joke goes, and here's something you didn't see coming. And that's uproarious laughter that makes us go, oh, I can't believe I didn't see that that's where they were going with that. And that is an experience that we all really enjoy. And it's something we do sort of innately. Even if we can't speak, I feel like animals do this too. They sort of play with each other and they sort of joke around with each other kind of thing. But yeah, I think it's just this well, when I had my DMT experience, I felt like I was speaking to the entire universe. The entire universe was speaking to me. And it just kept saying, this is a giant party. This is a giant party. I'm like, what do you mean a giant party? Like a party that I go like get some beers with my friends and like go dance and have a party? Like, yeah, exactly. Exactly like that. Whatever you think a party means to you, that's what it is. And that was in 2018. And every time I meditate, I feel like it like keeps unfolding into more understanding. Because that experience and every experience continues to unfold. It's not just one singular thing. It's alive. And every time you tune into it, it's like live stream. It's like every time you tune into an experience, you're there now, and you're in alignment with that. So it kept unfolding, and I just keep getting this message of like, it's one giant party. It's one giant party. Have fun. Have fun. What are the things that light you up? And when you're having a party, you can have a lot of different kinds of parties, right? We've all been to a party that went south and somebody got into a fight or something like that, and it wasn't a good experience. And we've all been to a party where it was like, man, I don't ever want to leave this party. This is the best thing going on. I'm going to remember this forever, and I can't wait to do this again, or I hope this never ends. And there's all these different gradients of how you could party. And as you party more, you might want to party in different ways. You know, when you're younger, you might want to drink your face off, for example. And then when you're 40, you might want to read a book by the beach. You know, both are sort of versions of that you get to play with, that you get to experience with. And I think it's all a journey of getting unconditional, like you were saying, taking the judgment away from everything, letting people, witnessing people over there partying in a way that you used to, and then calling it lower level or bad or wrong. But if you were somehow put into their shoes through their perspective, that's exactly what you would be doing too, because that's the perspective, that's the party perspective of that individual at that point in time.
Yeah.
So
I think that's
realizing that people on the other side of the world that are killing themselves or shooting other people, getting to a certain level of peace with that.
Yeah.
And then bringing it back to yourself and going, okay, no matter where I'm at right now, no matter what's happening, making peace with all of that. Because if I could go back and do it all over again, I would do it the exact same way. Because in that moment, in that time, in that frame, in that reference, I did the best that I could with what I had. And that's what everybody's doing. And so in that kind of way, that shifts you into the 5D in my perspective. Because now everything sort of takes on a level of, well, even though I may not agree with it, I'm not against it. I'm allowing it to be, because first of all, it's happening. I'm not gonna make drug dealers on the other side of the world for stop doing drugs. You know, I'm not gonna make the murderer not go through their process. And I'm not gonna make the happy person not go through their process either. You know, there's this idea of attraction in the universe, the law of attraction. And a lot of people confuse that with the law of assertion. There is no law of assertion. I can't assert myself into your reality, like you were saying kind of before. On some level, I have to agree to it or accept it or allow it into my experience. That so I can observe you and say, essentially, I will not align with that. I'll focus my attention over here. I'm not going to rally against you. I'm not going to picket you. I'm not going to protest in the streets. I'm not going to go on a campaign against you, because now I'm actually giving you energy and I'm creating more of it. I'm just going to completely withdraw my attention from it. And when people go to say, well, that's really difficult. No, it's actually not. We do it all the time. When I was a kid, I loved Ghostbusters. And then at 15, I could care less about Ghostbusters. I didn't have to work really hard at it. I just my attention just shifts towards other things. I'm more interested in playing basketball, or girls, or, you know, whatever the popular music of that time, you know, we're doing this all the time.
Yeah.
We're constantly shifting reality, and we're constantly just getting the thing that gets our attention. And sort of the negative knows or realizes that the louder it gets, the more chaos and calamity it creates, the more attention we're giving. Another way of saying that is everything just wants to be loved. The essential definition of love is unconditionality. I don't have a condition for you to be a certain kind of way. Like you said, the rose is the rose. I don't want the rose to be a different color. I don't want it to be a different height. I don't want it to be over here versus over there. Do your thing. Have your life experience. Let everything just be what it is. And that allows you to come back to having your own party, regardless of what everybody else is doing at the party. So that, you know, you don't have to be peer pressured, so to speak, into doing anything we don't want to do. You can be observing everything and go, okay, that's cool, but I'm not judging you. I don't really care what you're doing. I have my own song going on in my own head. I'm dancing to the own, you know, to the beat of my own drum, kind of thing. And I totally get that whatever you're doing is totally representative of where you're at. And I respect that journey, and I respect where you are. And if you want to connect on some level and talk about cool stuff, let's do it. You know, if you want to learn how to do some things, awesome. But if you just want to play that out, play that out. You know?
Yeah, and I agree. And when you're going into the life as a party, yeah, that's a great way to perceive it. A lot of the operating system I use that contains that concept is that there are in the polarization teachers of this world that, you know, as the purpose of polarity is so that we know both ends as much as possible and we elevate in those systems. So like with the party, it's like when you have philosophy about it, what is not a party? In TechNet, even in the things that we define as not a party, you could technically, in your perspective, shift it to where everything's a party. There's like even war zones in like Call of Duty that it's like a party, and like where you chat with people. Right. So your perspective on it, there are people that have fun with even dancing around death. So, right. And with that can have some great psionic amplification of their ability to go beyond death, but they not needing to go fully into that. But I think that's like a aspect of light aspects of reality cultivation, including like joy and understanding what comes from the party, which is a whole blanket of emotions that we seek. So there's like we could go into the cultivation and of bliss, harmony, joy, love, happiness, all the positive emotions, all the energies that we've been able to translate, the symptoms of our reality, which are good, that we want, and how to get there in cultivation, including cultivation and letting go of what is not it and understanding what is not it. And like a lot of it's generated within. So those generators, what do they need? A lot of the generators that I've analyzed, pretty much to make it simple, they need to feel safe. They need to feel clear. They need to feel the opposite of them, empty, so that they can emanate at their fullest, which is becoming that it's already there. And so in that being and in nothingness, which is also cultivation of emptiness and letting go and feeling those weights that want us to be or attach, that they disperse, they let go, they fade, whatever is the method that one uses, there's many. That those attachments release and that generator feels safe to shine out. And also with that is the combination, which is, this is all one thing and we're just describing the many little aspects. Transcendence is linked to that. Transcendence is the overcoming of the dark thing or the letting go process of what is coming up that holds it back, shining even greater. That generator of a party, you can make that stronger, bigger, brighter, constant, never needing a reminder anymore. It is to the point of expansion. And that can be had to such a degree that people don't know how to describe it anymore to other people, but they can experience it. So I think all that comes to depth as we understand and it's good to, if you want, because like we can't just meditate all the time, but they're good for those that do. If you can, if you're in a situation, you don't have to be 3D and all that. When we're not and our mind wants to know things, it's good to figure out what is worthy of your time to know, because we are fractals adding to the equation and adding to the history of what's shared information that allows us to stand on the shoulders of giants to greater, deeper transcendence, growth, and ascension. So and that's a good question for you. When you aren't going inward and going to the deeper state of consciousness and you feel the need to know something, and this could be an entirely different thing than what you've already analyzed. In this space, like, oh, what's beyond all distractions that I would analyze, that I could bring out? Because you're bringing a lot of wisdom out. You're like diving deep into the pool of knowledge of knowingness and then bringing out divinity, delineating and handing out the sparks of divinity that you reach into. What do you find? Like when I go into those spaces, the universe often just gives me things on their own, so which is better because you don't need to, and it kind of is more intelligent than me what I need. So that's true. But in your perspective, what is beyond all distractions that you would love to know as a fractal of the universe that you may have not already known? But also I can tell, sorry, the big question, that once you ask a question, you can probably answer it very quickly.
And I think the whole point is the evolution of it all, right? So just having this conversation is expanding both of us in some kind of a way. Without this conversation, we don't get that kind of expansion. So I think you mentioned meditation and how long should you meditate, and I think where you actually want to get to a place where you see sort of everything as a meditation.
Yeah.
But then even beyond that, so it's good to practice it. I don't think you ever really need to practice for more than 10 to 15 minutes in a singular sitting. You can go for longer and do fun stuff, but I don't think you need more than that. But I think what happens is it's really about getting to a place of appreciation where so if meditation is the neutral 0 point, then there's a desire will eventually come out. Even the desire to meditate is a desire, like you were saying before. Even the purpose of having no purpose is a purpose. Even the pathless path is a path of some sort. So what's the point? Is it just to be in this ephemeral, pure state of wholeness and oneness, which you would call like the God state or the 0 point state? Well, if that were the case, then we wouldn't be here having this conversation, right? We wouldn't even exist in that kind of a way. We would just be existing in a pure state of one light with no contrast and no experience. But I think the whole point is creation creates endlessly. So as soon as the expansion occurs to the point where it's reached a point of certain magnitude or whatever, it changes just a little bit, and then a new creation happens, and then you have another idea, and it changes just a little bit, and then you get a expansion. So I think even if you get to the central point of the center of the center of the center of the center of the depth 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 of the depth, you will go, okay, I'm either going to want to go infinitely deeper, which is again infinite, so you can keep going that way, or along that path, you're going to go, it would be fun if I did something completely different, where if I, pulled off to the side of the road and just admired the landscape. So in this human physical body, I think we're at our sort of highest timeline, you could say, when we're in that focus of appreciation of anything, whether it be the plant outside, whether it be the conversation, whether it be the energy that's flowing through you. I think the life force flows through us, and the result of that is desires or dreams. They're things that are calling us forward. It would be really fun to do this, it would be really fun to do that. I want to eat this later for dinner. Tomorrow I want to go get a cup of coffee at X, Y, or Z. Friday night I want to go do this with my friends, whatever. This causes energy that aperture to open up and flow more energy through us, that makes us feel that in that transcendent state. And the ultimate form of that, at least that we can perceive, at least that I can perceive, is this state of unconditional love or appreciation for all that is. And the things that bog us down, get on our nerves, trigger us, traumatize us, make us feel small or limited or separate, those things are there, like you're saying, to get our attention so that we can say, oh, no, you guys are welcome at the party too. You guys can come to the party too. And in fact, they're already there. All those things are already there. It's just you changing your perspective on it to go, okay, I don't need to have this thing triggered in me. I see that this is just something that's here to give me an experience to realize it doesn't really matter. Essentially, that's what letting go is. To go back to the Buddhist idea, the monks, they create these very intricate mandalas with grains of sand that are different colors and super intricate and super beautiful, and it takes hours. And then as soon as they complete them, they throw them away. They wipe them clean. They spend all this time, all this energy, very precise, very detailed. But there's no point. Or the point was to do that. And as soon as you get to the manifested, so say you're trying to do something and you finally get to that point where you get to the end, well, that means it's done. So essentially it's over. It doesn't exist anymore. But what it has done is giving you a process or a journey that now you have a whole different perspective about how to create a mandala or how to go about certain things. Now you have a new idea, a new perspective, a new journey in front of you. And it's just this constant in and out. The universe is created and then it comes back and collapses. And then a new one's created. And then it's just these bubbles, fizzing off the ocean of life, so to speak, like when the ocean waves, it just keeps waving at the shore. And this mist and this foam emerges out of those waves and they bubble up and then they go back in. And then they bubble up and then they go back down. And it's just endless, endless, endless. How long have these oceans been waving back and forth on these beaches? You can really say forever. And so within that process, we can get stuck at any one point in time going, oh man, I got to start all over. Well, really, every moment is a new start. Every day is a new start in its own, from one perspective. And the things that we hold on to are, everything's encouraging us to see it as not that big a deal and to let it go. And when you really come from that space, now all of a sudden the game takes on a whole different quality to it. It takes on a whole different lightness. Enlightenment means to lighten up, right? It's to not take things so seriously. Even with the stuff that we're so called to do. Bring in that sense of humor, bring in that lightness with it, bring in that joking quality, that playful quality. The universe is inherently playful, I think. And I think that's another thing is you mentioned something about, well, I think sometimes I'm making some of this stuff up. I think we're making all of it up. I think we're making all of it up and we'll agree with each other on some things and not so much on some other things. But we're making it up. We're playing. Just like when you're a kid and you're imagining the stick in your hand is a lightsaber and your best friend is actually a superhero from another planet. And in those moments, that's what's actually going on. That's how you are perceiving it. And therefore, that's what's happening. Same thing with time travel or aging. If you sit down in meditation for 3 hours, but it only feels like 5 minutes has gone by, in your reality, in your body, in your DNA, in your biology, 5 minutes has only passed, even though on the clock, 3 have. It's all relative to you. And in, I think in 2022, a Nobel Prize was awarded to a group of scientists that proved that the local universe isn't real. Essentially what they're saying is there's no reality agreed upon in the way that we think it is. You're having your own reality. And they were able to show this through different experiments that whoever is observing the thing is getting their own unique version of that thing. No other person at no other time in all of space and all of existence for eternity will ever have the exact same experience that you are having, because you are actually on one level creating the experience. And to take that into a practical application, our beliefs are basically the things that are navigating us through the experience. Whatever you believe to happen or will happen is what you can get. The cool part is that limitation in general is actually just a criteria for creativity to have ingredients to work with. In other words, if we're playing a basketball game or a sport and there's no out of bounds, that game's not really that much fun anymore, because I could just run out anywhere and you're never going to catch me. And so, but if I create a boundary, a limitation to play the game within, now we all agree to that. Now it's a lot more fun, because now I have to adapt and rise above that perceived limitation. So the limitation is there to give us ingredients or a framework to play within. And from that, we so-called transcend it. But really what we're doing is we're showing ourselves how creative we are to make up whatever we want, even though it seems as if there's all this limitation, even though it seems as if all these things are working against me, even though it seems like I'm just a human being here on the planet. I only have this many resources, and I only have this much going on, and I'm only going to live for this long, and et cetera, et cetera. These are all perceptions that, if we are creative enough in our thinking, change that landscape. But if we don't have that initial starting point, then it's just, everything's just floating in space and there's no real structure to it. So by putting in the contrast, we actually get to dream a new dream, which is sort of the engine of creation. The polarities are constantly spinning around each other, and that spin is creating energy or movement or momentum, which knocks into the next thing, which knocks into the next thing, which coalesces into what we call reality, or molecules and atoms and, you know, the physical nature of things. So without that spin, without that positive, negative, we don't get the, we don't get the energy. We don't get the in-breath, out-breath, which drives the whole system. The whole thing that's driving our body is our breath. That's what's connecting us to consciousness. That's why when you exercise, you breathe deeper, and that makes you healthier, because you're actually intaking more consciousness through your inhalation. That's literally opening up your blood vessels and dilating you and expanding you. And then we call that burning calories and building muscle and all that other stuff, which does happen. But the true thing that's happening is instead of being, we're becoming less dense, essentially. We're becoming more infused with the ether, the consciousness, the real thing that's going on here, that always is. And the things that fade in and out are just bubbles popping in and out on the surface of that ocean. And I think to me, this is a huge sense of relief. And I think when people understand this, especially and then relate it to whatever they're struggling with at the time, if they're not, or whatever they're trying to do, when you take this into consideration, it allows you to move with more ease. You flow around the obstacle, so to speak, or you might even pick up the obstacle and carry it with you, or infuse it into the ingredient. You know, it's kind of like how really good food is made. When you go back, you know, I love watching people on these cooking shows go back to where the food originated from, like in Italy or in the Caribbean, or, you know, somewhere. It always comes back to some limitation that those people were experiencing. Poverty, they only had access to this much stuff, et cetera, et cetera. And they made this beautiful dish out of it, and now it's fine cuisine that people pay a lot of money for. But it started out because people didn't have that much to work with. So they had to get creative. What can I do with this? How can I make this more delicious? How can I make this more appealing? how can I appreciate this process more? And then from that emerges all of this creativity, culture, artwork, music, storytelling. All of these things are the human spirit working with the clay of their day, of their time, and going, okay, people are telling me I can't do this and I can't do that, but what if I could? Or, what if this limitation is actually not really true? What if gravity isn't actually the thing that is holding everything together? What if it's something else? What if there's more to the story, essentially? And what if I can create something that makes the old thing obsolete? Wouldn't that be cool? What if we could just essentially relax and then be more productive instead of working 8 to 12 hours a day? What if we could just have really cool conversations, and then all of a sudden that raises the frequency of everybody, and then the perceived problem just doesn't resonate with us anymore? So essentially, they're gone away. What if we just played more and went to a society where you don't have to exchange currency in order to exchange value? What if we were just all collaborative and just saw things as one thing in a million infinite unique ways, expressing itself in unique ways, but really just one thing? Then what would happen? Or what if this is heaven already? What if we're already in the perfect state and we're just sort of signing up for these immersive movie experiences, where we get to play out these roles, just to see what it's like? And then when we pass on, we leave this body, we get pulled out of the movie, we get pulled out of the experience, and we go, oh man, that was really crazy. Let me do a life review real quick here and recap this experience so that I can now have that unique journey instilled in my my energetic body, let's call it. And now that is an aspect of uniqueness that gets thrown into the whole pot of existence. And it can get really heady and spacey talking about these things. But again, when you look at like a little kid or an animal, they're always sort of crafting new ways to do something. We have this genius inside of us that's always just turning something into something else. And our bodies are doing it, nature is doing it, sort of no matter what we throw at. Even if it's so-called bad, even if we're polluting or whatever, there's just this inherent quality that seems to emerge of perfection coming back into the fold, making everything anew. And then again, it's very relieving to me. It's very empowering. And to me, it makes everything fun. It makes everything take on this quality. All right, well, wipe the slate clean. What now? What? Now what do you want to do? It's like, even if you reach the center of everything again, okay, you become the all, the one, the highest there is. Okay, great. Now what do you want to do? Oh, it'd be really cool if I felt really limited. How could I create that experience? How could I create the experience that I have all the stuff working against me? And Earth is a good place for that. They've got all these rules and stuff. And everybody's got an idea about this, that, and the other thing. And you go play over there. And then you might do that for a while. You might do that for millennia. And then you might not. Who knows? But one thing I do know is that when people go from being, what they would consider a negative situation to a positive situation, it's only happening through an energetic shift, an emotional shift. Man, this really sucks, to what if something else is available? Opening up to the idea of a different possibility is where that's where the universe comes and starts playing with you and starts going, oh, okay, they're starting to get it. they're starting to see that there's possibility there. And that's when you start to open up the quantum field and do all this kind of thing, because we're not supposed to know what's possible. And perhaps there is no limitation to possibility other than what we believe. So maybe we should just be a little bit looser with our beliefs and go, well, it seems to be this way, but I'm sure there's more, because there has to be. There has to be more. There's no way I could get all of it in this one lifetime, or even if I could aggregate everybody's wisdom, everybody's life experience, it's still just a very small fraction of what's available, especially when you consider there's more galaxies and there's potentially more universes and there's potentially, it's just this endless landscape. So maybe I should just sort of go with the flow and not really be so beholden to what anybody else is really doing. Especially if it's not directly. It's one thing if somebody's directly in your face about to throw a punch at you. But it's another thing if you're on the internet on somebody's video that they made and you're spending your time trying to be derogatory or harmful in some kind of way. Another thing that I've noticed that I just want to mention too is that when people are having a negative experience, they're usually almost always 100 times out of 100 times focused on everybody else. They focus on either pleasing somebody else, or trying to be validated by somebody else, or trying to be seen in some kind of a light by a group or a particular person. And once they just shift back to themselves and what lights them up, and just any semblance of joy or fun or passion or bliss or interest or curiosity, any little bit of shift back into that incredibly and quickly increases your positive experience, like almost instantly. And those outside issues become smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. And then all of a sudden you start to realize, especially when it comes to your physical body can change so fast. Literally the shape of your bone structure, everything can change very quickly when you start to see yourself differently. Stress has a way of crumbling us down and deteriorating us and making us look weak and frail and lowering our immune system. And the opposite of stress is joy and fun and ease. And again, when we just focus within on ourselves, that tends to naturally pull back out, because it's we just get back what we put out. That just always seems to be the case. And the distraction is everything else outside of us. Being concerned with all of the billions of other conscious units on the planet that are doing their thing and living their lives in other words, you never really had to get anybody to see things our way. You never have to get anybody to get on board with our paradigm or our game. We can just sort of build our garden, play in our garden, and if other people or other insects or other animals want to come on in, play. But if not, I get it. You're not me. You're not necessarily here to do what I'm doing. But you'll find is you'll overlap with all the right people and places and things that are in that same magnetic trajectory. And that's sort of my version of wellness too. That's what wellness is being on your path, regardless of what is happening around you. You can thrive in any kind of circumstance. So as long as you don't judge where you are, what it looks like, what you think it should be, or start comparing yourself to others, you just know. It's this deep knowingness. And I think, again, we all have this. Because everybody I've ever talked to, whether it be the person living on the street that's homeless, whether it be the CEO, whether they make $1 million, whether they're poor, whether they're sick, whether they're healthy, we all have this underlying knowingness in our heart that everything's sort of all right. Everything's sort of working out. Everything's sort of we refer to it as God, and we have all these different notions about God, but even the fact that we have a notion about this large, all-encompassing, all-powerful, all-knowing thing is inherently an indication that, even if you're an atheist, by the way, that there is an existence of that. To even be against it is saying that it exists. And that inherently is like this energy of existence. Existence just exists. So there can't be a death, there can't be a failure, there can't be a wrongness. There has to be this ongoingness where you're a part of it. Otherwise, you wouldn't be here. Otherwise, you wouldn't exist. And even if you try to check out, you try to take your own life, or if you try to do something harmful to somebody else, you are still playing the game just at a different perspective, just from a different viewpoint. You've chosen different moves on the chessboard. But it is what it is. Life is life, and the universe is universal. And the path is pathing. It's just showing up in all these magnificent kinds of ways. And you're the chooser, the experiencer. That separation from that bigger awareness beyond just that 3D concept. Takes people on that journey that's unique to them.
Yeah, I like very deep. Yeah, unity, truth, oneness, perspective, subjective, objective truth. I find it's like a polarized issue that both sides aren't fully aware of, like the gravitas, because it is one and it's all connected. So there's like going into God or prime carrier galaxy, whatever, different upper source consciousness, the source of all consciousness perspectives. It's all synced together and has a purpose, and there's a need for that. And it wouldn't exist otherwise. There wouldn't be such strength in the attachment or the grabbing of either yourself to a concept or the concept to you if it didn't have a meaning and purpose to continue and have a shift. Even wrong opinions have a reason, purpose. And then with the shifts, it can be even greater once a person comes to greater and greater truth, which is ultimately less limiting. And then there's a capacity of internal unseen to seen truth that when merging bubbles of reality come together, what people call objective truth. But even their perspective of that isn't full, because then there's the concept of greater realities beyond what we see in our senses. And then what it comes together, even in a debate. If one side is perceived as winning, it doesn't mean the other side was completely wrong. It's just like what is needed in the merging, what is needed to be seen in the perspectives to have it all coherent.
Right.
But it
Coming
doesn't.
together produces something else.
Yeah, exactly. Growth, which comes from unity. So there's unity in the unfoldment of the separateness of what people come to the belief in their reality, and then the coming together, and it's still being connected. But without both, there wouldn't be optimal growth. So yeah, we can go for hours, and I'll definitely want to have you on again. But yeah, I gotta get things going with my other things. So hey, everybody out there, smash a like and leave a comment for our special guest. Can you plug your information on how people can reach you?
Sure, yeah. The best way to reach me is probably through my website. It's www.thehennesseys.com. THE, my last name is HENNESSEYS. the Hennesseys.com. And you can find all my social stuff there. Yeah, that's pretty much it. You can email me, you can check out my Instagram. I'm on most of the social stuff.
Any
But yeah.
any up and coming projects?
Yeah, I actually have a book coming out pretty soon. I'm self-publishing a book. It's The Simplicity of Living Well and the 7 Laws of Wellness. So over my 18-year career, I basically realized there's about 7 universal laws to living well. And it's really one thing, which we already talked about, joy. But I break it down sort of into 7 things to make it a little bit more practical for people. And I give them some exercises and so forth. Because I feel that well-being is the key to everything. Whatever you're looking to do, this is the thing that we're doing it with. So when this thing is well, we're in its highest vibration or in its best optimization, whatever however you want to reference that, everything's better. It just feels better. Feeling better leads to things being better, more creative, et cetera, et cetera. So that book's coming out. And then, yeah, just working with clients. I write a blog as well. I have a free blog, so you can go through tons of free stuff there. I love sharing information through that. And yeah, that's pretty much it.
And yeah. If this is you have a YouTube, right? So this might show up on your YouTube.
Yeah, and actually also too, I forgot to mention, I'm doing 80% off all my online courses. So I have 3 online courses. One's about raising your vibration, one's about manifesting your dreams, and one's about finding your soulmate or finding more self-love within. They all actually kind of work together. So 80% off if you use the code self-love at checkout. So if you're interested or you feel called to it, you can dabble in those things with the code self-love.
What's the
yeah,
code?
self-love.
Yeah, and any other events, and so you do consultations and you have online products.
Yeah, so I have online courses and I coach people one-on-one, just like we're doing here. Conversation style coaching that I usually do just over the phone. But yeah, I don't have any live things coming up yet, although that may change. I also like to travel a lot, so I expect to be back in Costa Rica sooner than later, hopefully this year sometime. But I'm also talking to someone about possibly doing a retreat on the East Coast in the New Jersey, New York area. So yeah,
Wonderful.
just go with the flow.
Awesome. And I'm Sean Bond of PsionicLeague, PsionicLeague.com, Sonic League YouTube, I'm also on Facebook. You can reach me PsionicLeague@gmail.com. Do consultations, online products, got a bunch of meditations coming up, a bunch of things on transcending different negative emotions, how to become your greatest self, unlock different abilities. I teach telepathy, all kinds of psychic tracking, defense, all things to like go to higher consciousness and let go of the things that hold us back from what you really want to become. So thank you. Please seek us both out, contact us if you want a session with either of us. And yeah, we'll see. Oh yeah, smash that like button, place a comment, share this as much as possible. We have to get us past the censorship algorithm that wants to suppress people down in the matrix. And then yeah, let us know if you want to see Dan Hennessey come back. And how much you like him, show him some love. Yeah, thank you all for coming. Love you. Thank us, let us all rise together. Yeah. Have a wonderful day, guys. See you later.
Thanks for having me.